So for the last 7 weeks, we have been experimenting with blessing. We've been using The Gentle Art of Blessing by Pierre Pradevand. Sue and I have shared stories of blessing from our lives. Some of you have shared stories with us that we've also incorporated into our talks. And then we've shared a lot of stories from the books. But in the process, we've heard a lot of stories from you guys, experiences you've had through blessing. And so we wanted to open this Sunday up to hear those stories, to let you express those stories. And 5 people have come forward with 6 stories. And so we're just going to get started. Noah, you're first. And I'm wondering, come on. See, the funny thing about this is they say yes, and then I say, great, you'll be up on Sunday. And they all go, what? Here. So what I would like you to start out focusing on is a certain Tuesday night.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Noah. I'm delighted to be here.
You gotta hold this like this.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Anyway, I'm Noah. Happy to be here. Beautiful song. Brought me to tears. Thank you. The Blessing Book. I came to church here for the first time 4 weeks ago, and this book was being discussed, and I bought it after church. And on Tuesday night, that following Tuesday night, I was going to a regular meeting that I normally go to, and I always park in the same spot. This time, as soon as I got out of my car, a gentleman basically accosted me right outside of my car and was like so close that he was spitting in my face. And he was obviously drunk and accusing me of different things that may or may not have been true. But the point was that my initial reaction was I was going to defend myself because I thought that's where this was going. And how I grew up, that's throwing the first punch, you know, and that was how I started to react. But then I remembered that I had read the book. I had this thought. There's a part in the book that talks about when somebody is showing you aggression, break into blessing. And I said a simple prayer of blessing. I said, God, please bring this person peace, serenity, happiness, and joy. And almost instantaneously, his body went limp, and he just said the word okay, and turned around and walked off. I didn't say it out loud. I said it in my head. But really, for me, the most amazing part is like the transformation within inside of myself. Like that would have been something that would have stayed with me for at least a week, and I would have ruminated over it over and over and over again about how I should have reacted, could have reacted, what I would do differently next time. And as I was going into this meeting, I was like, I can't wait to tell everybody what just happened. But as I was walking in, I completely forgot about it. It like left my head. And I didn't remember it until a few days later when I was telling my mom about this book. I'm like, you got to get this book. And then it popped back into my head, and I was able to share this story with my mom. And so for me, just the Gentle Art of Blessing I have more peace and serenity now since I've been doing this than I've ever had in my whole life. And I bless pretty much everybody. When I walk into church this morning, I bless everybody in this church. I bless people that I encounter on the streets. If somebody pops into my head, I say a prayer of blessing. And so basically, I'm praying all the time. And the huge benefit is that it gets me out of myself, and because it's a funny playground in my brain. And it's good to get out of my head. That's been my experience so far. please read the book. Please practice blessing. If we were all doing that, this world would be at such a much better place.
Thank you, Noah. I'm looking for Steve. He's got to be around here. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Get up here. Steve is another one of our raring to go. Yeah, let's get up here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Hello, good morning. And thank you for the music.
So yeah, tell us, it's definitely impacted a little habit you have around driving.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it in your song about our crazy society, and it seems like out on the roads is where I get tested for my spiritual fitness on a daily basis, and people drive crazy sometimes, and the things that they'll do to advance their vehicle, a car, or to a position or two in traffic. And you just want to communicate with them. And so I found a way to communicate with them. You know, I give them the, you're number one, you know. And this isn't doing any good. I was riding home with some friends from Lyons last night, and a van pulled over that was in front of us. And the guy, as we drove past in this truck, the guy gave us the, you're number one. And I said to the driver, hey, you guys just got flipped off. Did you see that? And he said, I paid no attention to other people. And I really took that to heart. You know, even this message that, even the impact, what I'm trying to convey is probably impactless, right? Mm-hmm. So chapter 12, I believe it is, talks about us doing this blessing for ourselves, right? Because what's the energy that I'm putting into myself when I'm doing that kind of an aggression to somebody else? I don't know their story. I don't know why they're in a hurry, but I can bless them for their greatest good. I can do that, and just like Noah was saying, and he is a good man. I can't see him drive crazy out there. God count him as a friend, and to increase the love is the goal that the book talks about. And I think that the love, that something that we all want to do. That's why we're here, right?
Right.
As a community, and so I can practice this blessing in times of stress and try and regain that spiritual fitness, even in a stressful place.
And you told me that it's impacted how you feel.
Yeah, right. Because you're not putting that negative energy out there. You're putting a positive, loving energy out there. And that internally, I think our bodies really respond to that.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you, Steve. So, for example, in Noah's story, it would be easy to write it off and say, well, that was just coincidence that he relaxed in that moment. And that's possible. But the thing that we're hearing in both Steve and Noah's story is that they've replaced an aggressive response with a loving, open-hearted response. And to the ego, love has no power. But spiritually, we understand that love is incredibly powerful, that love gives us courage, and that love melts away all of the need we have to be separate and allows us to come together. And so by practicing blessing, these two men are adding love to the environment, not hate or resentment or the need to retaliate. Important to understand. Kate, I'm wondering if you would come up next. Kate is another very willing participant. She took a couple of Valium before she...
Not really.
Tell us about your experience.
Okay. So my experience with blessing was quite a surprise. One of the things I do is volunteer as a backup to our great Cindy Bear, who does all of the contribution transactions in the new Breeze program.
She enters all of your checks into Breeze for us, and Kate is her backup.
Yes. So when we started our group, and I'm just wondering who here is in my group. Who's in my group? There's Annie. Hi, and there's Zach. Okay, got a few. It's a wonderful group, and I've been very happy to be a part of it. And when we first started reading the book, I committed right away that this is something I wanted to make as a part of my practice in spirituality, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. Well, so one day I was entering all the transactions, and I was thinking about that, and it occurred to me, this isn't that hard. Here are all these people. These people that some I know, some I don't. Sometimes I don't recognize a name or there's not a picture there. But they're my tribe, either way. So I started blessing each transaction as I put it in. And it was, I would bless in their prosperity, their generosity, their willingness to commit to the church, just anything that I could think of, but it all came from my heart, so I guess it wasn't from thinking. But I suddenly realized I was sitting there and crying. Tears were just rolling down my cheeks, and I was just filled with love. And that was my proof for me. Pierre had so many good stories, but that was my experience of really seeing what blessing does. And the two things that I think have affected me the most is that you can't bless and judge at the same time. That's something very helpful to me. So now I lost the other one. What was it?
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in Scott's world right now.
You can always shout it out
Yeah.
later.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Terry's got to be out there somewhere. There she is. She's sitting front and center.
Okay,
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually reading to avoid taking the Valium to get up here. So just wanted to make sure I don't leave out any details because this has been very impactful for me. So I was going to come up here this morning and tell you about the many amazing experiences I've had as a result of participating in the fall group program and reading the book, The Gentle Art of Blessing. A free lunch, a real estate deal that had been stalled for weeks, which suddenly and unexpectedly moved forward following 3 days of pretty intense blessing the situation and the person holding up the transaction. And an overall feeling of giddiness, just having a lot of fun blessing everybody left and right and all around. But then I realized it's not about what I get from the practice of blessing. The most profound effect is the change that's taken place in me over the past weeks. That's been the most significant blessing of all. And I heard you say that too, Noah. That's been huge for me. When we started the fall program and I began reading this book, I was so excited. I was sending blessings throughout the day. I had Post-it reminders on my steering wheel in my car, on my bathroom mirror, next to my phone in my office. They were everywhere. I was having so much fun, and I was amazed at how good it made me feel to send blessings to others. Then during week 6, we read a chapter called Don't Forget to Bless Yourself. I was having a tough time with this one. It was surprising to me how fun and easy it was to bless others, but I was having difficulty coming up with blessings for myself and really taking them in. And just for clarification, based on some feedback I got after the first service, that's just because I was having a hard time feeling worthy of blessings. So I want to make that point. So during our gathering that week, Duncan led us through a beautiful meditation that she created based on an exercise in that chapter that helped me open to this process. And that meditation is now part of my daily practice. So that was very helpful, helping me get in touch blessing myself. What a concept. This has truly changed the way I deal with challenge or conflict. Now when I'm faced with a situation that's causing unrest in my life, I bless the situation, anyone who is involved in it, and myself. And I can feel my body relax, and my body and mind relax immediately. I'm able to let go and move forward. If negative thoughts about the situation return, I bless it and let it go, truly feeling the negative energy dissipate as I go within and send blessings from my heart. I will admit, however, that there have been a few instances over the past few weeks which have challenged me to the extent that I've had difficulty with the blessing process. I truly believe with daily practice and a deepening connection with this process that my ability to dive in without judgment or hesitation will improve. One thing I know for sure is that reading The Gentle Art of Blessing has had a profound effect on my life. And sharing it with my group in a safe and loving container has only deepened the experience. I'm truly blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Terry's sharing is really important to all of us because, and it's probably good that Pierre didn't bring up blessing ourselves as the first chapter, right? But once we can bless ourselves, what Terry was talking about, we relax. And what do we relax into? We relax into our nature, which is inherently loving. And so continue to work on being gentle with yourself, on acknowledging all that you are and all that you bring to life. And then finally, where's Anne? Anne, come on up. Anne's got a couple of stories for us. Anne was the only person who said, yes, I want to get up there.
Well, some of you know me.
Let's see.
Sound like it turned off.
Yeah, did it? Let's happen.
Hello.
Oh, you're there.
So I actually have two stories, as Scott mentioned, and the first one was in regard to a friend of mine. I met him in a coaching group that we were in. He lives in San Diego, and we became accountability partners. So we talk once a week. I've gotten to know his partner a little bit, not much, just on a podcast or on Facebook. But this partner was traveling in Italy with friends, and their car was broken into and everything was stolen. And I learned about it from my accountability partner, and so I wrote to his partner, and he said, yeah, I'm feeling pretty sick about the whole thing. I'm probably going to have to do a GoFundMe or something when I get home because I used up all my money to take this trip. I'm trying really hard to change my perspective on this whole thing because I know there is beauty in all of this hate and anger I feel. You can tell he's already a fairly evolved person. So I wrote back to him and I said, oh, we're reading this book, and I told him about The Gentle Art of Blessing. I'm blessing these perpetrators as I write. And he told me later that about 15 minutes after he read my message, they got a call from the police and they said, we have found your suitcases, so at least they had their clothes back. So he said that really made a difference for the trip. And what he said was, I'm a firm believer that your last message helped resolve a bit of the problem by blessing the people who stole our stuff. So he was very grateful. So that was one that went out to someone else. And then there's one for me, and just a little bit of backstory. I am one of 10 daughters. I'll give you a second with that. I'm the second oldest, and I was raised mostly in Boulder and then lived away all of my adult life until about 2.5 years ago. When I returned, my parents asked me to take over as power of attorney for them, which I willingly did because that was one of the reasons I moved back, was to assist with them. They are almost 91 and almost 88. And so there's been a lot going on. In particular, we can see that it's no longer workable for them to stay in their home by themselves. So there's been a lot of conversation over a year. I've been doing all kinds of researching and looking into programs. What's good for my dad isn't a good setting for my mom, and vice versa. It's been a challenging situation, but my sisters and I have had a lot of really helpful, constructive conversations until one of my younger sisters came to me and said, my husband and I, they had moved to a new home recently in Loveland. She said, my husband and I have always wanted to care for our parents. And so we're going to put an addition on the house, and we're going to invite Mom and Dad to live here. And, you know, how does this feel to you? And I said, it feels like a miracle, because it's not $18,000 a month like some of the places that we were looking at. So she said, well, would you like to tell Mom and Dad? So I went over, and it made sense. Let's check with them first. And my mom was enthusiastic. My dad was a little bit less enthusiastic, but he said, that sounds like an okay plan. So then she sent a message to all of the other sisters. And then the blowback happened. And I was stunned. I had no idea. There were some really negative, hurtful things that were said. And I got really triggered because I thought I made a mistake. I actually made two mistakes. I made the mistake of not checking with my sisters first, and I also made the mistake of getting my parents excited about it. And now I might have to go back and tell them, oh, guess what? And so I got really triggered. And what I did in that time was to bless like crazy. And I was blessing myself at every other one because I knew I needed it. I knew I was really triggered, and my normal response would be, okay, I have all these conflict resolution skills, so I'm going to get this resolved, and let's do this quickly. I was like, I'm not touching this for a couple of days. And the blessing that came out of that was that I was able to calm my system using that and a few other skills that I have. But also, then my sisters started writing back with a different tone. And I started hearing things like, well, I've prayed a lot about it, I've thought a lot about it, and I think maybe actually this could work. And there were certain concerns, absolutely. We were ready to address those, but I felt like we weren't given a chance to do that. And now this was finally happening, that they were talking from a perspective of, well, let's see how we can support the situation to make it work for Mom and Dad instead of just blasting it out of the water. So that was an enormous blessing for me, and I would like to believe for everybody else in the family. So those were two situations for me, and I was just reflecting on the fact that we don't know the ripples that have gone out from all the blessing we've been doing. There's a lot of situations where we don't ever know the results. So I'm just going to keep blessing.
Thanks, Erin. So we begin to see that, and I think all the people that shared sort of touched on this, that we're creating a different energy field in blessing, one that is imbued with an open-heartedness, with a love. And so I want to just introduce yet another practice to you as we finish up today, because during this fall program, several people, and not necessarily, well, I don't even actually remember. I interact maybe with a few too many people. But several people talked to me about the power of blessing food. And the first time it came up, I was remarking about how many more chemicals our food is exposed to than when I was a kid, or even when our parents were born. And how do we really protect ourselves from all those? And the person just simply said to me, oh, you just bless the food. And then I heard Claire. Where are you, Claire? There she is back there. So I bet it's a year ago you handed me your book, right? Well, I finally read it last week. It came to the top. It came to the top of my list. And Claire, right in her book, From Burnout to Fired Up, she says it's important to bless your food. Got me curious. Why? Is this something proven, or is this just something we spiritual types say? Turns out there's all sorts of scientific evidence about blessing your food. And it's not so much just about blessing our food, but about creating positive energy, and that it impacts not only the people, right? And one author said, let's go a step further, a loving, positive energy. It's not only impacting the people and the circumstances, but what it's been shown to do is impact food at 3 levels, and I made sure I made them bold so I could see, at an electron level, at a molecular level, and at a cellular level. And one of the studies that I was reminded of was the 1999 experiment by Dr. Masaru Emoto. All of you know this one, at least I think most of you will, where he took 3 bodies of water, right? One body, they just was the, what do you call that? The one that doesn't get, the control, thank you. One was lovingly blessed with whatever words they wanted to. Thank you for refreshing me. Thank you for being what allows our food to grow, or whatever. Just totally heaped it with blessings. The other one, they set negative intentions to. Oh, you cause flooding. You're awful. They just heaped it with negativity. And then they took a drop from each one and froze it. Fascinating, the difference. In the one that had been laden with loving blessing, the crystals were very complex and laid out just like a snowflake. So in a perfect pattern, but also extremely complex. In the one that had been laden with negativity, they described the crystals as chaotic and disastrously disorganized. And they said that as you move into food, so, putting food, for example, in a loving energy, blessing our food. And by the way, multiple authors said in our country or even in the world, we're used to blessing God for our food. No, bless the food directly. Put the loving energy right into the food. Thank you, food, for nourishing my body. Thank you for willing to being harvested or being slaughtered so that I could be nourished. I like to say in my prayers, I promise to make the best use of this nutrition by living my potential. They said that food then has been proven to be more nurturing, more nutritious, it brings more regeneration of the body. It was just fascinating to read about this week. So I want you to extend the blessing to your food. And again, remember, it can be quiet. We're learning. We don't have to say anything aloud. We don't have to make a big deal in a restaurant. We can just pause. It's been a good run, hasn't it? Driving still drives me nuts. But I'm more quick to go, wait a minute, I'm being judgmental of that driver, and I can bless them. None of us are probably perfect at this, but with every time that we remember to bless, we are changing the direction of this world. And so we'll continue to remind you about blessing. Appreciate you so much for walking this journey with us. As such, we are becoming the light of the world. I want to invite you to begin to start preparing your love offerings as we invite the bros back up.
This is our other bro. This is my dad, Steve Larson. I was so grateful to get the invite to play here today, and in the first service. This is the first time I've played solo in a long, long time, and I feel extremely lucky that I happened to end up here on a Sunday with this life hack known as blessing. And I'm excited to go out to the world and be the Oprah of blessing. Be like, you get a blessing. You get a blessing. Because I believe all that stuff, and now I just wow, how did I not hear about this before? So, wow, thank you so much for doing this. That's why we got yoga and rock and roll. That's why we go dancing and lose control. Columbine, Unity, Colorado. It's why we wake up in the early morn just to catch a sunrise when the day is born, or stay up at night after the sun goes down just to see the moonlight and the stars all around. It surrounds us every second, every hour when it fills us up with the super love power of connection. It's perfection. Everybody moving in the same direction. Correction, it's more like flying. All together now, no trying. You need a hug, 'cause I'm supplying. Love is alive, no denying. Love is all you ever really need. Love is all